Okay, so now we are here at topic 7.14. So World War II is over, and this is post-war diplomacy. So first of all, Europe is ravaged. So you can see from some of these photos, because of the concept of total war, many European cities have been devastated. So they have tremendous damage. Some had over 90% of buildings destroyed. So the devastation of World War II is going to leave Europe just absolutely in ruins. As I said, key cities like Berlin, Warsaw, Dresden, they face extensive destruction. Up to 90% of the buildings damaged or destroyed. So not only buildings, but there's also infrastructure damage, including roads, railways, and bridges. And that's leaving these nations unable to rebuild independently. And so if you think about it, if you're bombing another nation, you're going to try to bomb things like their transportation networks, their oil supply and things like that, to make it so that they cannot do things to prepare for war. You're going to bomb their factories and things like that. Well, now that the war is over, those very same transportation networks, oil factory or oil refineries, maybe factories, those are going to be the things that are needed to rebuild for post-war time, to rebuild these devastated cities. And so basically, Europe is going to be in a place where it can't really rebuild independently. So beyond physical damage, there was economic collapse that plagued Europe. So factories were destroyed, as I said, agricultural production was stalled, and then there was millions of people displaced or homeless. So these conditions allowed the U.S. to emerge as the most powerful nation. And so the U.S. suffered almost no domestic destruction. There might have been like one Japanese firebomb that was like floated over that killed like 6 people, but that was it. And so the U.S. now holds the world's largest economy and industrial output. Okay, next we're going to go to the Marshall Plan and tariffs. So the Marshall Plan, officially the European Recovery Program, aimed to rebuild European economies and prevent the spread of communism by stabilizing nations politically and economically. The idea is that countries would not want to become communist if the United States provided for them to be rebuilt. And so countries with devastated economy, United States was worried that as the Soviet Union looked to expand, the people in these countries would gravitate towards communism as an answer to their economic troubles. So between 1948 and 1951, the U.S. provided over $12 billion in grants and loans, that's $120 billion today, to rebuild industries, infrastructure, and communities. Lowering trade barriers also became a critical issue. Tariffs, which had been as high as 60%, were reduced to encourage free trade. By 1950, they had dropped to around 13% on taxable goods. So this was a mutually beneficial system, and it stimulated American industries and helped Europeans recover economically, and it formed stronger alliances with democratic nations in the West. Okay, so we have occupied Axis and United Nations. So Germany was divided into 4 zones of occupation administered by the US, Britain, France, and the Soviet Union. So Berlin, despite being in the Soviet zone, was divided similarly. Japan was placed under U.S. administration, with General Douglas MacArthur overseeing its reconstruction. A new democratic constitution was drafted, and the military was disbanded. The occupation policies aimed to demilitarize, democratize, and rebuild these nations to prevent future global conflicts. Also, the United Nations was established. In 1945, it replaced the League of Nations with its headquarters in New York City to symbolize the U.S. global leadership. Its goals including promoting peace, security, and human rights. So key bodies such as the Security Council had permanent members, including the U.S., USSR, Britain, France, and China. Just remember, it's kind of like the winners of World War II are on the Security Council. So this is the big thing. Unlike its predecessor, the League of Nations, the UN had actual mechanisms to enforce resolutions, such as peacekeeping missions, and it played a significant role in post-war diplomacy. Okay, expansion of nuclear weapons. So the atomic bomb, first used by the US in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, ended the war but also began an era of nuclear arms proliferation. In 1949, the Soviet Union successfully tested its first atomic bomb, breaking the US monopoly on nuclear weapons. By 1952, the US had developed the hydrogen bomb, a weapon 1,000 times more powerful than the atomic bomb. The Soviets followed with their hydrogen bomb in 1953. So this arms race defined the early Cold War, with both nations stockpiling increasingly destructive weapons as tensions escalated. And you can see these are the size of the bombs that were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and then the bombs get bigger and bigger and bigger. And this is the Tsar bomb, or the Tsar Bomba. Look how much bigger it is in its area of coverage. And so a bomb like this going off would be many times bigger than a bomb like this going off.